For those of you just joining us, King Charles III has just addressed his nation barely 24 hours after the death of his mother, after she ruled the country for the better part of 70 years. So this is the first time in that time that we now have a king. Let's get the thoughts of Douglas Murray, joins us, the National Review Institute Fellow. Douglas, good to have you. What did you think of this speech? Right away, I immediately thought he addressed kind of the two big elephants in the room, his wife, Camille, going back to the days when maybe some Brits still have hard feelings about the whole Diana situation. And he went on to talk about Harry and Meghan and my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their life overseas. It was a very open to all, forgiving tone.
Yes, I thought that he hit exactly the right tone. Occasionally in the past, the royals have been criticised for being too unshowing of emotion. This was, of course, the big criticism that wounded the Queen in particular very deeply in 1997 after the death of Princess Diana.
And she wasn't prepared for that, right?
She was, by all accounts, deeply shocked by this. She, of course, was from a generation, and perhaps the epitome of a generation, which didn't show emotion, which believed stiff upper lip in stoicism. And there are good things to be said for that, let's remember. You know, this was the same attitude that got Britain through the darkest days of the war. But nevertheless, the country has changed, society has changed, and people do expect to see more emotion, more warmth. People shouldn't think, by the way, that just because people don't display warmth, they don't have it. I mean, the Queen was an enormously warm mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. She didn't believe in showing of emotion in public as much as next generations of the family do. But I think it was very important that, as you say, King Charles now addressed those two things in particular, his wife, the now Queen Consort, and that issue of Harry and Meghan. It would be terrible if there was a sort of any domination of the family problems that have occurred, as they do in all families, at this moment. At this moment, I'm sure that the new king wants everyone to be thinking of his mother, of the late Queen, to be reflecting on her memory, to be reflecting on her achievements, and not to let anything distract from that.
Normally, in this country, in all countries, people do gather for a funeral and they do pay their respects to someone who's passed away. But then that fritters, that dissolves again. What do you suspect now on the Harry and Meghan situation? Again, with talk of a book, that could be a tell-all book. Many in the family leery of talking to them, maybe all the way to including William and the king himself. How do you think that goes?
I hope they simply restrain themselves. You know, the late Queen's views were those of her mother as well, the late Queen Mother, which was never complain and never explain, and never give interviews. The Queen Mother once gave an interview, only once, and she deeply regretted it.
Is that right?
Yes, she thought it was a great mistake to have ever done it, and she said almost nothing in it. But the late Queen took a very similar view. She didn't believe in throwing out views. Everyone has views, but she really didn't let her own views on. She was a very intelligent woman, very sparkling, and had a keen insight and wisdom, which was perhaps the quality which world leaders, including American presidents, most enjoyed about her. But nevertheless, she didn't throw out her opinions on things. I would hope that the next generations of the royal family, and indeed the next generations of the public, learn a lesson from that. There's a reason why she was respected, not just her longevity, not just her wisdom or the way in which she was on the throne, but the qualities she embodied. Those qualities are qualities which our societies to a great extent have been losing. Qualities of stoicism, qualities of resilience, not moaning, and much more. I think people should reflect on why we admire those qualities, and to the extent that we admire them, why we might want to keep on to them.
It's very wise. You know, Douglas, you mentioned how the Queen eschewed stating her political views or even granting interviews. I didn't even know that there was even one that she granted and regretted it. But her son was not bound by that. He freely expressed opinions, not only in speeches, but the few media interviews he did, particularly during the period with Diana. But we knew how he felt about climate change. We knew how he felt about ghastly, glass-covered skyscrapers. As king, do you expect him to do that, or to do that stand back above the fray approach?
Well, he'll have to do the latter. is the answer. In a constitutional monarchy, you cannot have a king disagreeing with the government. The king or the queen must preside over government like a light above it. It's true that Prince Charles, when he was Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, definitely put out his own political views more than I think many of us thought was wise. You know, told ministers of his views and much more. He did say a number of years when questioned about that of course he certainly wouldn't do that when he became king.
But you know where he's coming
but
from.
We do
you
know
never
where he's
knew
coming
with the
from.
Queen where she was coming.
That's absolutely correct. And of course that's important because governments come and go. And you know, there might be a particular prime minister that a particular monarch is more fond of, or president they're more fond of, but...
Do we know whether she had any favorites?
Yes, I mean, we do, yes. I mean, it's, there were definitely people whose company she enjoyed more than others.
Such as?
Well, I mean, she obviously had a huge respect for Winston Churchill, her first prime minister.
That makes sense.
Which makes absolute sense. And she was beside him on the balcony of Buckingham Palace when the Second World War ended.
Wow.
But she never put her views out there, and we must really hope, I think, that her heir and successor doesn't either. We know what King Charles's views are on certain things, but he must now put those issues aside. He must reign above politics, above the fray, and he must be that uniting figure as his mother was, who gains the respect of people of all political views, because the monarch effectively is equivalent in Britain to what the flag is in America.
Yeah.
You know, in America, people respect the flag; they swear allegiance to the flag. That is effectively the role of the monarch in Great Britain. People in Parliament swear allegiance to the Queen. All of the court cases are in the name of the Queen. The soldiers in the armed forces promise to lay down their life, not just for the nation, but for the Queen, now for the King. So it's a role rather like the embodiment of the American flag. And that must be something which unites people. It must be something which all people in Britain can unite around, irrespective of politics, far above politics.
That is beautifully said, Douglas. I've had the pleasure of listening and watching over the years to see you in person and reflect on this. Thank you very, very much.
It's a great pleasure.
And by the way, the flag to which Douglas referred, Union Jack flying at half staff, and to show the tightness and camaraderie between our two countries, so does the U.S. flag. We'll have more after this.